So I want to thank everybody tonight. Happy New Year. My name's Patty Schramm. I'm the Parent Resource Coordinator and Trainer for the SALT Talks. It's hard to believe we're into 2023. I started doing this in 2015, and yeah, it's just hard to believe another year has gone by, and we're starting a whole new year. But we're in the middle of our season. So this month we are looking at the topic money, financial planning, anything that deals with money. So tonight we have a financial planner. We have Gina Schenk. Schenk, sorry.
That's
okay. We'll be talking about financial planning and debt management and budgeting. We all have to have that challenge at some point, especially with our individuals with disabilities, as we try to guide them as well. Just where to start, how to start, what to maybe talk to them about, and just certain guidance. If you didn't see the link, I have a link there in the chat for the guidebook, which you can pull up, but you can also write everything down on a tablet. But we wanted to touch base on this. Like I said, we're looking at financial planning, savings accounts, special needs trust this month, but we're going to kick off the year with this financial topic, financial planning. So I'm going to turn it over to Gina. We will, Gina, I did want to ask you before we got started, if we usually put questions in the chat box, like as they're going through, if they have questions, and just they can put it in the chat box and we can address it as we go, or we can save them for the end. That's totally up to you.
Well, part of this, we could do the questions and it's fine to do it throughout. Because it's geared on if I was like teaching your children and, your young adults. So, some of the questions are going to be like, I'm going to be asking you, and we can interact. by all means, even on a personal note, if you want, have a question pertaining to yourself and not just, the young individual that you're, going to be there to help, because we all can use a refresher course in this as our daily lives go on. But I can do it. Yeah, that we can do it at the end. It's fine to ask the questions. And with the worksheet, there are some things where, actually kind of role play it when you go through it yourself, because I'm going to be asking you to do, various things. But by all means, yeah, we could do it at the end.
Yeah, we'll
in the chat.
We'll allow time, like after the presentation, we'll allow time for some I'll stop the recording and then we can allow some time for open chat as well. But if you have any questions going through, I'll watch the chat box, Gina, and let you know if someone asks a specific question, okay?
Okay, that would be awesome. I appreciate it.
All right, and I made you co-host, so you can share your screen at any point.
Okay, let me see if I can find it here. See if I can share it. All right, I think we're on.
All right.
There we go. Okay.
There you go.
I guess a quick question, can anybody not see the presentation where it's a big blue background saying making budgets work?
We're good. I can see it.
Okay. All right. So, here's just a kind of an outline of what our goals are in the workshop. You want to determine personal obstacles to budgeting. Budgeting is a scary topic, a scary word for an individual, let alone for you to be talking to your young adult on this. And we're going to create a format to track and analyze spending, list your short and long-term goals, discuss the importance of debt reduction and an emergency savings, which Patty already said that, that definitely we need as an emergency fund. And then apply any strategies to manage your day-to-day spending. So as you very well know that budgeting definitely has a positive effect on your financial situation. It's going to help you ease a lot more with paying your bills, paying down debts, or trying to make sure that you don't have debts. And, to, again, your goals and save for emergencies, but stress. I mean, this is, you don't want this to be another topic that you might cause tension between you and your young adult as they move on. And, you want it to be where, it's a positive experience. And technically, really, most people can do better at work dealing with budgets and activities for that as they can with their home. Because it's very hard, at the end of the day of working, that you don't want to, do it. You want to be doing something fun. This is a tedious chore. So, I mean, it definitely slacks in our home. And, these are excuses that people will have, also in regards to, not doing it at home. And I think, especially in regards to, it says no self-control. Once you kind of get it set up and see how it can work for you, that actually, gives you encouragement and reinforcement that you can, have self-control on it. And definitely it reduces any hassles. So for an individual, in regards to goal setting is, I mean, that's one thing that can, I'm not sure how they are and what they mean by goal setting. So here's some examples of a short-term goal that's less than 3 years. It could even be, besides these examples, it could even be, that they want to get, a new PlayStation. They want to get, even say, redecorate their room, the paint in and put new furniture in it. Things that, can be smaller scale, but it's something that definitely is manageable, that is in a very short time. And those are things that you, want to be able to save for. And, I would say for anybody who even has a shorter attention span, that, saving for, a larger item, you could do it in small increments, so like, say, for example, if it wants to be in, redoing their room, well, you go together and you figure out, the key thing is to figure out what costs are. So like, say, how much is paint? How much are you going to need, 1 gallon or 2 gallons? So they could be starting to save, okay, here's the money for the paint. And then here's the money maybe for, a new bed. So you can, scale it down to make it manageable for them. And then also in regards to the next phase is midterm goals, where, something bigger, paying off debt. Some of your young adults, might be able to have their driver's license and buy a car. So then you have to figure out, what is the cost of a car? And, how are they going to then put that in their budget? So, the key thing would be is for them to really learn about the costs of cars. And then you would, find out how much you would need for like a down payment. And those are the things that would be then the first goal is that. And then you look into like the monthly payment. And we'll go into a little bit more as we go on. And then long-term goals is definitely, I mean, for retirement or, paying off, I mean, here are the examples of mortgage or college fund, but I mean, some of them might be able to buy a home, or they might be able to, well, they are going to have their retirement too. What are they going to be doing, if they get to be, a senior, just like, the rest of us. And a lot of them do. So it's like, what are they going to do at that point? But that's something, that can be, looked at as time goes on. And some of them maybe can't handle, those type of stretches of time. But the first thing you need to do in regards to your personal budget is what do you need, which is 50% of the budget. And that's, they're living during their living situation. Can it be with, let me retract for a second. So on the worksheet, there is on page 3, a thing where you can be setting your goals. So that's where they can interact with writing down what their goals are. Don't put the amount or the time factor in, but just things like examples, I said, redoing their room, or, getting a PlayStation game, those type of things. And from that, it's going to help us with, the next steps. You also, on that page, it's talking about the obstacles, which we had addressed, and those would be, I don't understand it, or it's, I'm tired and I don't want to work and do it. And, what are the challenges and so on. So on that worksheet, we kind of quickly went through it, but they can actually write those things down. And I think that when you write them down and they're seeing it visible, then it's more concrete as compared to, just talking about them. So that's one thing with the worksheet, and that's on the page 3. So now to go back, sorry about that, retracting. So going back to now this slide here with the 50, 30, and 20 budget rule. You want to live within your means. A lot of people don't know what that means, live within their means, or they think that it's pretty much what they want as compared to what they need. And we have to look at the needs first. So 50% of the money that they have, either they've earned it, if it's Social Security, combination of both, an allowance, whatever. What do they need that you feel that they need to be financially responsible for? Is it their clothes? Is it the things, like I said, the PlayStation, redoing their room? All those things is, what are they going to be responsible for? If they're independent, of course, it's going to be all of these things. So it's really difficult to describe what is their needs, their wants, and their savings. The savings at 20%, that's like their emergency fund. So, you could just use, basic math. So say that they get $100 a week. And so that means $50 is going to be covering all their needs, whether it's food, or so on, that they have to pay for. Their wants is 30%, which would then, fall into something like the example of the PlayStation game. And then the savings is that emergency fund, or even to, retire, to save for like a vacation, or that could be also for, eventually retirement. The wants and the needs percentages can be flipped, based on, your own situation. But definitely you need to put 50% of your money in as your needs, to make them, understand that those are the key important things. And it's, as I said, it's hard to judge what they are. So have them write them down. That will, help them in the discussion to determine which category are they, whether it's needs, wants, or savings. And, as Patty had said, that, they think they need a PlayStation, but is that really a want? So that, there's a fine line there where you have to try to, go around those. So, one of the, as we said, that is a savings, it says build your emergency savings. And, again, that's also contributing to a retirement fund and paying down your debts. So, in regards to the emergency savings, that's one of the things that really needs to be just as important as paying down your debts and your daily expenses, because you don't know when you might have a job and now you don't have a job, or if they do have a car and now there's a major car repair, because that's one of the things that happens to a lot of people that put them in debt, where the you don't have an emergency savings, so then you're relying on the high interest credit cards. And that could then be where you could seriously cause a lot of turmoil in your own financial situation because of the high interest rates, which we'll kind of go into it in another slide. But just think for an example, and I've tell other people now what happened with COVID. In 2020, when a large amount of people lost their job, if it wasn't for the government gave us the stimulus checks, and for housing, the loan companies, the banks, and the mortgage loan firms, they gave like 6 months where you didn't have to pay. They gave you a grace period. Or for renters, they could not evict you because you couldn't pay your rent. If those things did not come into play, probably a very large percentage, I don't know the statistics, but a very large percentage of American people would be losing their homes, being kicked out of their apartments, becoming homeless, because they did not have that extra finance or the means to live because they did not have an emergency savings. So really with this current example has brought, I think, into focus to a lot of people to realize the importance of that. But the emergency fund, you might not need it, which is always good to do, and eventually that could even go towards your retirement. But that's another category where you need to, also look into as time goes on. But one thing to always remember is time gets away from us. Time and time again, they say, oh, well, I'll be doing this when my kids are out of school. Well, that's, could be 10 years down the road. Well, that's 10 years that you haven't thought of yourself, and that's 10 years before retirement. And I know that that situation is, pertaining more to maybe not so much your young people now, but even in yourself is, any of the parents out there is, I know your main focus is your children, but you also have to think of yourself as eventually you want to retire. So, everything has intricate pieces, just like a puzzle, for you to be able to, make it work for you and for them. So here's an example of a credit card that's at 15% interest. And say that there's $5,000 on there. So the first month interest is $50. So the new balance is $50 and $5,050. They're paying the minimum amount, which is $40. By all means, that's legitimate, that's fine, it's legal that they're able to do, that the credit card companies had set up. You're not going to get your fees, but you're going to still keep getting interest. So even if you pay the minimum, you're not even, by this example, you're still not even paying the interest on the first month, let alone any of the original charge. So now you owe $5,010. So you actually owe more than you ever started. And that's where things get really out of hand with credit cards. So this is, I think, is a good example, is to show your young adult this example on, how, they need, if they do have a credit card. I know there's a lot of credit cards that you could do where they have limits, so maybe, it's $500 and they can't go beyond that. So, they can have the freedom of feeling that they're independent, for them to go and, and buy a new outfit or a pair of, shoes or whatever, and not be going out of their means or making it be to the point where it's going to be too hard to pay it off. And, but they still could feel like they, are an adult, as compared to just, giving up a credit card. Credit cards can also have restrictions on what the purchases are for. So, those are different things that you can, look into that will help you with your young adult. So this is dealing with if, besides the credit card, you're paying off debts to free up funds. So this example here is Maddie wants to build wealth by buying her first home. Can she accomplish her goals? Well, for example here, her monthly income is $4,500. She has student loans. She's also paying credit card payments and her car. So her, debt is a lot less than what is her monthly income. But then she still has that $5,000 charge there where she's going to be getting that 15% interest. So this is something, where you could say, okay, she should be paying, more for the credit card payments to try to pay that off. So there's some debt repayment strategies. There's two that really seem to help people stay focused, that you might have heard, talking, and you might even do one of them yourself. So these are two just good examples of how to do that. Because, like that $5,000 charge, that could be very overwhelming to, one of your young adults, on how am I going to pay that off? So like here, this is an example of, 4 different type of loans that they have between credit cards and personal and student loan. And then we have listed here the interest rates. And so one of the methods is the avalanche method, which is to pay off the highest interest. So in regards to that, by this example, of course, it's going to be the major credit card, which is 26% interest. And then once that's paid off, that $3,000 is paid off, then it would be the retail credit card, all the way down to then the student loan. Even though the balances might fluctuate, that's still the highest interest rate, because that's where a lot of your money is going month to month with the interest and not paying off that balance. Like we had the example of the $5,000, and she only paid $40 and the interest was $50. So she really owed $5,010 after her first payment. And that's, because of the high interest rate. So she's never going to get that balance down if she just does the minimum on that amount. So the avalanche method, might be the best, for her. Or the other one is the snowball method, which is to pay off the lowest balance. So, in regards to this, the lowest balance is that retail credit card, but it also is the second highest interest rate. So it's going to kind of be, a combination of both methods because of that interest rate. And that's going to really help in getting that taken care of. Either method, whenever they do pay off, one thing that you need to point out is they don't not pay on the other ones. So they always are going to have to pay. So for example, if they're paying, say, the snowball method and the retail credit card, they're paying more on that. Well, they still need to make that minimum major credit card one, which was at $40. So then you're not getting any additional fees. At least, the interest rate's still going to be there, but the fees will then not be tacked on. Because lots of times fees could be just as much or more than the minimum amount that needs to be paid. So, this is, in regards to just kind of an overview of the emergency savings on how to protect yourself. They're saying that the average emergency financial shock is $2,000. Lots of times it's due to a car repair. That's probably one of the biggest ones. And, or it could be somebody who, could be sick for 2 weeks and they're not working. They could get COVID and they're not working, and they don't have sick pay. So those are really the situations that tend to cause the biggest emergency for shock. So to have that $2,000. One thing is I know that you can have in regards to, their different accounts, which you're going to be going into, like the stable account and so on, where they can have minimums in there, but you really try not to use those. Have them have their own savings account, have their own checking account, to keep them totally separate so you don't, get into the funds that would be there for their long term, where they might need it when you're not able to be, as supportive as you possibly are, or, when you're not even, around anymore. So, I would try to have them have their own savings account and checking account, so they could, monitor that money themselves. I know that everything is so digital anymore. And that's one thing that I think really causes a lot of the young people to not realize where all their money's going. But you can very easily go to the bank and get the old checkbook registers, so they could actually, add and subtract. Or, you could even do, something, on the computer, if, that they're very savvy with the computers and everything, is an Excel spreadsheet is created, and, see those numbers increase, and then also subtract whatever you're paying. That good old check register is probably one of the lost tools that we all need in today's time. I still have one. And then, it really kind of goes into, I'm missing the worksheet here. Hold on a second here. I got 3 sources of papers here. So on page 5 of the documents is a list of what the expenses are. And, I'm jumping ahead. Sorry. Yeah, so on the expenses. So with that, they can list down, and that'll help them come up with what their budget is just list down what the expenses are. Don't, write down any of what the months are at this point, but to kind of just do it as you're having that conversation, which will then also help them, understand what would they be paying if they did need to use that emergency fund. One thing that's kind of key is also, as I said, for example, that with the check register, as compared to, everything is on apps, is I've helped some young people. I always like to give examples. And so for one, I had, I just give the example of this. It was a young hairdresser, and she wanted to, start saving to buy a house. And she had 2 young kids, a single mom. And, she was like saying, I don't have money to be, saving for this. So, if they don't have the check register, is to print out their bank statements and look at all of where is that money going from the apps. It could be, Starbucks coffee. It could be even the different things where, downloading music to, different games on their phone. A lot of them have fees on them. So, a lot of those things, they just add up and you don't realize that they're happening. And maybe something can be, removed because of that. Streaming, and so on, even gaming. So, it's for the different, PlayStation games, there might be fees for doing group things. So those are all things that need to be, addressed and looked at, and they might not be aware of them. But if those are important to them, then write them down on that expense work page. And because that's something that then they're going to have month to month. So in regards to, besides just regular living expenses of, food and so on, the recurring expenses, we need to be watching and recording down on your expense tracker sheet. So that would be, if these examples here are, home, auto insurance, home insurance, mortgage rates. Well, even if it is rent, Do they have a car? Are they paying for their car insurance? And those are different things that you're going to have every month regardless. And then, for large purchases, if they are going to be getting, even the cell phone, those things are, expensive. And, do we know what those costs are? And, also you need to look at it saying, do you need a new one every year? Like when Apple comes out with a new one every year, that's something that is a want as compared to a need. You might need a phone, but do you really need the newest version of it every year? That then you keep purchasing new phones. But regardless of that, for large purchases, what you should do is have them learn what this stuff costs. Do shopping. It could be on the internet. Not go to different stores, or look at ads and stuff and find out what are things costing. And is there certain times of the year that it would be cheaper? Like say for example, the televisions, the computers, both of them usually are on a great deal when it comes closer to the the holidays, as compared to like a car. You could get something that could be at the end of the year, because that dealership doesn't want to have to be paying the excise taxes on those cars going into the next year. So they might reduce it. So those are times it could be generated by that time of year that can be affecting it. And then from that also is impulse buying. Is you don't want, as we said, we're part of the needs is the impulse buying, is that they want it now. And with the apps and stuff, is very easy, or on the line with the web. Anything can be purchased, pretty much online, that it can be, happening instantaneously, where, that's where you need to have your goal setting, to help minimize that. And from all that, with you, this here is just saying discuss with a neighbor. So that would be like if we were in a group setting and, be talking to your neighbor next to you, is what do you do to increase the, or decrease the pain, and have more ease of, paying for expenses. Another thing is that they could do, and a lot of times, as I said, with the different times of years, is extreme couponing. I mean, so much within the mail and the newspapers. This is a couple years old. It's but there aren't as many free coupons. But even things, like if you do online, Microsoft has coupons for to help reduce costs. But then that also, besides all this, can be a negative. Like say for example, the merchant Kohl's cash, is that if you pay $50, you get $10 Kohl's cash. So then it's like $10 free. So yes, it's nice to know that then you really are, you only paid $40 is what people were thinking, because they got this $10, but it's not a credit. You have to purchase something else, and then that usually is more than the $10. So it's kind of like, it could just like the same thing as with credit cards, that you could get into big trouble where you keep using those coupons, just because of the fact that you have it, and you could save $10, but do you really need anything else? So those are things that are out there in today's world that constantly is going to be an influence on them, and for them to really sit down and realize it. But then there are some things, is also look at clearance items, markdown items, as well. In the worksheet, on then the next page, there is on page 6, it's talking about in regards to the debts. So if they do have anything, car payment, the credit cards, that you need to list those in there and what the interest rate is. That will help them, to kind of determine what is to be paid off, and is there something with a higher interest rate or not, on whether you use the Avalanche or the snowball method, that this worksheet could help them minimize it. And then down at the bottom of worksheet 6, it's got the discretionary income. And that's basically where you're, is the extra money that you have after you get paid, and they have all their expenses that are set. That discretionary income, from that could be, part of that 20% of your savings, or you could be doing, an extra payment to pay off one of their debts. In regards to, maybe they, due to Christmas, whatever their job is, they're working extra hours, or they might even get a little bonus from work. What are you going to do with that money? Because that's the discretionary income that you normally don't have. If you're a waiter or waitress, the tips are considered discretionary income in a lot of ways. So because it varies all the time, and you don't know, what you're going to have, so you want to base your net income on your regular money and then your expenses to see if you do have anything extra to be help paying for, some of those other debts to get them down. And then on page 7, as I said, I'm sorry, I'm jumping around again, but I'm looking at the screen and not so much my paper, so I apologize for that. But that is kind of like where you could help them. It's a worksheet on how they can determine what is their needs and what is their wants, and creating, off of what is their monthly income. So, that's a good worksheet to have on page 7, the participation guide. And then on page 8, it also is one where can you cut it out? And those are, this is a nice worksheet for them in regards to cutting expenses, especially with a lot of the streaming TV shows, even something as simple as a gym membership. Do they go to the gym? But they sign up for it, and month after month they're not going to the gym, but they're still paying it. And lots of times that automatically just comes out of their bank account, so they don't even see the bill for it. So it's like out of sight, out of mind. So these are things that you could review their checking account and review to list those expenses, or like if they're going to Starbucks every day before going to work, do they need to do that? Maybe they get a coffee pot and they learn how to make coffee, and they could, even buy Starbucks in the grocery store, that they could still have their Starbucks coffee, but it's a lot cheaper than that $5 a cup that you're going to pay through the drive-through. So these are things on how you can figure out what their expenses are. Can they cut them out? Or how can you, minimize them, like the example I gave with the coffee. So now it's pretty much, I mean, on this thing, it's, it's for a group discussion on a lot of ways, like how you can, reduce your spending, minimize it, and so on with the, the group discussion. But by all means, use anything in the chat line where, we can kind of have a group discussion at the end. So, even though you go through all these things, people will set it up just like New Year's resolutions. They started, at the beginning of the year, like say they're going to work out and they're going to lose 25 pounds. Well, after that first month, it fades away. But what you need to do is to establish strategies so you can make it stick, because this is something that's going to be ongoing, and it's going to be, for the rest of your life. So, we need to get it a solid foundation, so then you do it without thinking. So, you want to focus on, that, I wouldn't say put it as a punishment and, getting your budget set up, but as a reward, because this way you can feel good about, with, your young adult, they can feel more independent when they really realize, what are they, with their job, what are they, paying for themselves, just like, another adult would be, what their parents would be. What are they doing, which is going to give them a feeling of self-worth, as compared to, punishing them, saying, that you're always wasting your money on, you know, video games, or, fast food, or whatever, that you really can't, accomplish what your funds should be set out for. And then, as I said, make as much stuff automatic. If they have any type of bills, even, you could do it with credit cards, where you could put the minimum that it automatically gets put in. A lot of the, things in regards to rent or utilities, all that could be set up where it is automatic, that they aren't thinking about it, but then they could see it in their, when they look at their monthly statement. So nothing is forgotten, and they don't have to stress about it, but that's automatic. But then, in regards to that, you need to always be addressing, saying that they get paid, and, they're getting a paycheck of $250 this week, and they're going to have $200 come out, this week for, one of their reoccurring expenses. So then they need to realize that, okay, you got paid, but also, what's coming out this week is, this payment. So, with it being automatic, and for them to see it month after month after month, is also going to kind of reinforce, and make it, in their mind that, they're being responsible, and, they're taking care of everything, and not, getting into debt. Another way you can be doing it with strategy is create buckets. The old-fashioned way, when everything before was automated, a lot of our, parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, they used to have, a mason jar or an envelope, where each week when they got paid, they would put so much money in each of the envelopes to help then have that money there at the end of the month. So, it's just as simple as, you could do that, even, is to have them, if they need it, if it seems to be more beneficial to create different buckets, and to have them go into different things. Even envelopes like the cash, you can even do it that way still. But it would, it shows that they're putting it in there, and they're paying it. And, it's adding up week after week, to see that then they're going to meet their goal of paying that off, whether it's a bill, or, even in regards to creating a bucket for saving for something, for saving for a PlayStation, for saving with, getting a car, to taking a trip. Those are all, those could be buckets. And so, they see that money's getting put into it, week after week, and that helps them, create those, midterm or, goal type of goals. So, and today, with the, we kind of went through that 50-30-20 rule. And as I said, that was on work page for them. It is page 7, where, it's going to help them realize where their money needs to go, where they would, want it to go. And then, how are they going to save for that emergency fund, or for, a larger goal, whether it's, a car, a house, a retirement, a trip, those type of things. And then, with the psychological biases and conditioning that influence our spending habits, a lot of it, as I said, is all the different apps and what's out there, and the fact that it's all automated. And I gave the example of the Kohl's Cash. Those are things, that are going to influence them, and that you need to make sure that you address them and talk to them, on a regular basis, to see why this is good or bad. And then increasing your emergency savings is always, a key thing. And then decreasing your debt is, we went over the avalanche, and we also went over the snowball theories. And you could work them simultaneously, even, where that one example that was shown, that, that's how they're going to minimize their debt, so then it's manageable, because it could be very overwhelming for people to, have debt in so many different things, and they're like saying, "Oh, I'll never pay this down." And this is one way that they could see it little by little that it's getting paid off, and they can do it. And then, of course, the variety of the tips and strategies to help you free up funds and to stick to your budget. All right. So that's pretty much the presentation, in regards to also the worksheet, is that you could use the pages. Since you didn't do, really needed to do the worksheet, as this is kind of geared, I just kind of skimmed over it. But, by all means, if you have questions on any of the pages, because you're going to have your young adult fill them out with you when you're having those conversations, that, we could go over them again because we still have time, or, other questions.
Thank you, Gina. I'm
Sure.
going to stop the recording because I feel there's a lot of discussion points in all this. And so I don't want anybody to feel like, sensitive because we were recording the session, but I'm going to thank you before I turn it off the recording, to thank you again for your presentation, and for those who were listening. 1 second while I stop the recording.